Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Yeah. You have just stepped out into the world of chaos. Where everybody goes hard. Come on. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Or go home. Never back down. You gotta hold your own. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. East Coast. Go hard. West Coast. Go hard. Midwest. Go hard. Dirty. Hurry up, everybody. Get online. Buy your tickets because the game about to start. It was definitely a pleasure, man. So tell me, let's go back to your beginnings in the first game that you called.
So the first, I don't remember the games I've called, but I remember, let's just say.
The ones that stick out the most.
So I would say I was doing both when I was playing and then when I aged out. So playing, I would say the first person that kind of stuck out in my age range, like I said, LeVar Folk, Trevor Diggs. They was just bar none better than all of us within our age range.
Right.
And they started bringing their boys around or whatever. So I played with Mel Tinsley, and when dudes are just so nice, you might never see this guy again.
Woo! Yo, y'all hear these names that he's dropping? Trevor Diggs, Mel Tinsley, LeVar Folk. You hear these names? These are definitely Brooklyn legends, man.
DeQuay Walls is on a couple teams.
Right.
Then the next year, I played with Alan Griffin. Alan Griffin is probably the nicest person with the Syracuse that I played with. When I see him score 48 and a half, just so effortlessly.
Wow. Salute to Alan, my dude. Right.
That was the most easiest 48 I've ever seen somebody score in my life. But yeah, but rewind it back a little bit, just being a fan of the game and Harv on the mic, just seeing people like GB and Lamont Jones and Charles Jones, man. Charles in the beginning, I just knew him for defense. Then as time developed, became this offensive juggernaut, man. So just watching as a fan in the stands to transition into the mic, like I said, the energy people gave me is the energy that I put out there on the mic. But yeah, and it's again, shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Diggs, man, for giving that platform.
Definitely. Salute to them. And what I can say about Mr. Diggs, he was the one guy from around the way that would come to my games and support. Definitely remember seeing him there.
And Diggs would always, even if he saw something wrong or he felt like something he could speak on, he had that authority to do it and would do it.
Right.
So, and then just giving everybody that platform in the summertime to give somebody something to do. Because granted, a lot of us that played in that tournament wasn't good enough to play high school ball or, traveling teams, so on, etc. So the reason why people like Trevor Diggs, LeVar Folk, so on, etc., careers were cut short, they aged out before they were old enough, was to give us an opportunity to play. Because if you had those type of guys in the tournament, it would have probably discouraged locals from playing because they weren't sort of at that level. But, so shout outs to them. But eventually they did have seniors and they did have guys at those levels. So that's when you started seeing the Charles Joneses come back, the Courtney Solomons, the Rayford Austins. Trey had one kid on his team that he from Queens, man. He went to high school with. He was solid. Mike Campbell.
Yeah, definitely. He went to Fairleigh Dickinson with me as well. What up, Pat?
Wow, he did? That's cool.
Yeah. So, question.
Yeah.
How does it feel to call the Lamont Jones game when he had 54 at 11 years old? Was it 10 or 11?
Man, that was probably the first cat I ever saw ball that I was like, yo, he's different.
Yo, I was at that game. I remember summer, I forgot what year, but I remember just coming down and just coming to watch the game, and he put on the show. And I remember he finished up with 54. And I know he was 10 or 11 years old.
It's different to see a kid get his with almost grown, older teenagers. That's when you know it's special. When you see a kid that's probably barely going into junior high school playing with like kids 3-4 times his age, and like not only holding his own but being dominant. And those are the people that kind of stick out throughout the career of me MCing. But Lamont Jones, Charles Jones, the Jones brothers, you be hard pressed to find a brother duo that could match up with them, man.
Yo, remember how hype Charles used to get and the face he used to make every time he scored? remember that? He was just always just so hype and just, I was like, yo, this little kid got a lot of fire in him, man.
Yeah, and I could really remember, like, wow, just him being, when my uncle coached him and Jackie Robinson, he was like defensive stoppers. He always had long arms. Right. He always good at defense. And then just over the years to see that in some cases offense succeed his defense. Right. He led the scoring twice. It's just incredible, man. And then to go on to play into the league, he is definitely one of the best players, man, to ever come through Brevoort projects and do it. And people still tell Charles stories to this day. Man,
wow.
Shout out to him.
What is it? Is it any particular game that sticks out from one of those guys that, you know, that let you know that we had a lot of talent coming through the neighborhood? You mentioned a lot of dudes, but is there a specific game that you watch or that you call?
Like later, I would say like in the early 2000s when we did seniors and you had Anissa Sports playing against the Starlight City teams. Like at the time, Anissa Sports had probably about, I was dare to say 9 to 8, 10 D1 prospects on their team. So they came, the kid Vernon Goodridge. Right. He played Jabari. They had Nunu who went to St. Seton Hall. Right. Man, they had a plethora of cats, man, but they were solidified D1 basketball players, and they were all tall. They had a pro-size team, like a 6'1" point guard, 6'5", 2. Vernon was about 6'11", Jabari about 6'9". Then they had Nunu probably was the smallest dude on their team. Wow. You had Anissa's where they wasn't like really big in size like that, but they had some serious cats, man. They had the kid Ruben. He went over he played at high school St. Patrick's. They had a couple players from Severian. The kid Saquon. What was the other kid? Had a sick jump shot. Brian McMichael. Eugene Lawrence, who went to St. John's, but went to right. So I remember when those dudes came and played. Whenever it was Anissa's versus Starlight.
And all of those dudes just on 2 teams?
Yes. And then mind you, forgive me, I'm missing people. So yeah, all those dudes on 2 teams. So when the Anissa's played Starlight City, that was like must-see basketball in the Coliseum. You had to be out. You was going to see something special. So yeah. If I go back a little bit, then you had also, forgive me, I don't know who was coaching, but you know, we had seniors where you had Trey Diggs, you had Charles, you had Courtney. They were all on one squad. Then on another squad, you had I don't know who Ray.
I think I remember that team. I remember that team.
It's famous in Brevoort, the Rafer tape. This is like the first time in the hood seeing Rafer throw the ball around Courtney's head. Sadly, that's what all people remember about that game. But what I remember about that game is Courtney had about 30, 35 points on Rafe. I mean, just really? Rafe had the handle and he had the show going on. But as far as like that work, that work.
Wow.
Yeah. Court gave him that, and that tape was floating around in Brevoort.
Salute Courtney, man. Oh, there's a tape. There's a tape?
Trey had the tape. I don't know who he loaned it to or left it with.
We gotta find that tape, Courtney.
In my house and we watched it, and I said, "Yo, you want to leave it here? Nah, I'm gonna take it over here and show it to so and so." That tape is in somebody's closet now, nowhere to be found. But
wow,
it's a game, yeah, man.
What up, cuz? Yeah, that's crazy.
And then
That's
you had
crazy. And I remember the talk about Raper coming to the neighborhood, and I never saw him play when he was that young. I got him seeing him play when he was older. But the talk was he came through. I never heard that story about the Courtneys. They left that part out. Because everybody's so caught up in the oohs and the ahs, and no one looked in the stat book.
Nah, Court was killing them. Pulling up, handle, going around them, pulling up deep threes.